In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. In the previous episode, we saw how the Quraysh tried every possible way to stop the message of Islam through ridicule, posing difficult questions, negotiations, and even compromise. But when none of these worked, their approach became aggressive. They turned to physical persecution, first against the Prophet ﷺ and then against the early Muslims, especially those who were most vulnerable. In today's episode, we'll see the suffering faced by the Prophet ﷺ, the cruelty of Abu Lahab, and the brutal torture inflicted upon the early Muslims. So let's begin with the physical harm upon the Prophet ﷺ. When all tactics to stop the spread of Islam were failing, the Quraysh slowly moved towards emotional and physical harm upon the Prophet ﷺ. It is reported in Hadith in Sahih Muslim. Once Abu Jahl said to his people, "I swear by Allah and Al-Uzza, idols of Makkah, that if I see this man Muhammad ﷺ praying near the Kaaba again, I shall put my foot on his neck and I will throw sand on him." The Prophet ﷺ came that day and started praying near the Kaaba, and Abu Jahl was there with his cronies. When the Prophet ﷺ went down for sajda, Abu Jahl came forward, trying to put his foot upon the neck of the Prophet ﷺ. But before he got to him, the people around him saw that he turned backwards and started pushing away with his hands. When he turned back, the people asked what happened, and Abu Jahl replied, "I saw between me and him a pit of fire, and there were massive wings above it." The Prophet ﷺ later explained to the Muslims that this fire was brought down by the angels, and if Abu Jahl had taken one step closer, the angels would have shred him to bits. Soon after this incident, Allah revealed the remainder of Surah Al-Alaq, where Abu Jahl is severely condemned. Have you seen the one who forbids a servant from offering salah? Have you considered if he was on the right guidance or was enjoining true piety? Have you considered if he denies the truth and turns away? Does he not know that Allah is observing all things? Nay, let him know that if he does not stop, we will drag him by his forelock, a lying, sinful forelock. So let him call his supporters for help. We too shall call the guards of hell to deal with him. Nay, do not obey him. Prostrate yourself and bring yourself closer to your Rabb. Surah Al-Alaq, ayah number 9 to 19. In another incident, Abdullah ibn Amr narrates about an incident which he describes as one of the worst things he saw happen to Prophet ﷺ. Once the Prophet ﷺ was praying in front of the Kaaba when he saw Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayt coming to the Prophet from behind. Uqba then threw his shawl around the neck of Prophet ﷺ and began to choke him. The Prophet ﷺ was struggling to breathe, but no one was intervening or coming to his rescue. Finally, Abu Bakr was informed about this, and he runs to the Prophet ﷺ, pushes Uqba over and shouts, "Are you going to kill a man merely because he said, 'My Rabb is Allah, and he has brought you clear signs from your Rabb'?" Ibn Ishaq al-Sirah Nabawiyah. Allah honored Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu by revealing verses of Quran with the exact same phrasing from Surah Ghafir, ayah number 28. A believer from among the relatives of Pharaoh who had kept his faith hidden said to Pharaoh, "Will you kill a man merely because he says, 'My Rabb is Allah, and he has brought you clear signs from your Rabb'?" But the persecution was about to become even more personal, as we see in the next part, discussing the tactics used against Prophet ﷺ by his uncle Abu Lahab. Abu Lahab stooped to extreme low tactics to show hatred towards Muhammad ﷺ. Abu Lahab would throw stones at the Prophet ﷺ, and his wife would tie bundles of thorns with ropes and scatter them on the paths which the Prophet ﷺ was expected to take. When the Prophet ﷺ went to preach the message of Islam, Abu Lahab would follow him and say to the people who be preached that he ﷺ is a liar. The two daughters of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ were married to the two sons of Abu Lahab. The marriage was not yet consummated as the girls were still minors. Abu Lahab and his wife ensured that their two sons divorced the daughters of the Prophet ﷺ. They did this in spite of being uncles and aunts to the Prophet. And it was a breakaway from common tradition in Arabia, wherein people from the same tribe would strongly support their family members. For such acts of Abu Lahab and his wife, Allah revealed an entire surah condemning them by name, Surah Al-Masad or Al-Lahab, ayah 1-5. In another instance, Ibn Ishaq narrates, whenever the Prophet ﷺ was mentioned before the chiefs of Makkah, they used to say, "Leave him alone, for he is only a childless man, Abtar, with no male offspring. When he dies, there will be no one to remember him." The Prophet ﷺ had two sons and four daughters from his wife, Khadija radiallahu anha. First his son Qasim died, and then his other son Abdullah also passed away. Showing delight at this news, Abu Lahab and the chiefs of Makkah would say, "His line has come to an end. Now he is Abtar, that is cut off from the root." Allah then revealed Surah Al-Kawthar, "O Muhammad, surely we have granted you the Kawthar, countless blessings. It's also the name of a special fountain which will be granted to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ on the day of judgment. Therefore, offer salah to your Rabb and sacrifice. Surely your enemy is the one who will be cut off from the root." Surah Al-Kawthar, ayah 1-3. From here on, the persecution was about to take an even more humiliating form. Let's now talk about the physical and emotional persecution upon the Prophet ﷺ. Another incident narrated by Ibn Masud in Sahih Bukhari is one of the worst things they did to the Prophet ﷺ publicly and near the Kaaba. Once the Prophet ﷺ was praying in front of the Kaaba. A day before, a camel had been sacrificed. So Abu Jahl said, "Who amongst you will go to the carcass of the camel and bring the intestine and throw it on the back of Muhammad ﷺ while he is praying?" He brought this up as a challenge to his peers sitting there. The worst of them, Uqba ibn Abi Mu'ayth, stood up and went to the body of the dead camel which had started to decompose. Then with his own hands, he picked up the intestine along with the entrails and the stomach of the camel and brought it to the assembly near the Kaaba. And when the Prophet ﷺ went in sajda, he dumped all of it upon the head of Prophet ﷺ. The weight of it was so heavy, the Prophet ﷺ was not able to lift himself up. The people in that assembly started laughing so hard that some of them fell onto their sides and others were hitting themselves. The Prophet ﷺ remained in sajda until some person went to his daughter Fatima, who at that time was around 8 years old, and informed that her father needed help. Fatima rushed to the Prophet ﷺ crying and immediately helped him to get the dead animal off from his back. The Prophet ﷺ then stood up, faced the people in the assembly, and he raised his finger up to Allah. When the people saw him in this state, all of them became quiet. Then the Prophet ﷺ started making dua against them by name, and he mentioned each of their names 3 times until all of them had a deadly pale face on them. Ibn Masud, who is the narrator of this hadith, says there were 7 people in the gathering. And Ibn Masud says that I swear by Allah, I saw all these 7 people with my own eyes dead in the battle of Badr, and they were dragged to the wells of Badr and thrown into it. Let us now move to the next part and take a glimpse into the persecution and torture upon the Muslims. When persecution was being meted upon the Prophet ﷺ, who came from noble lineage, we can imagine how severe it would have been upon the early converts and especially the slave class. The architect of such persecution and torture was Abu Jahl, so much so that the Prophet ﷺ called him the Fir'aun of my Ummah. The tactics used by Abu Jahl were as follows. If the convert was a nobleman of Quraysh, Abu Jahl would not harm him. He would begin verbal abuse and taunt and ridicule him. If the convert was a businessman, he would initiate a boycott and ensure no more buying and selling with him in Makkah. If the convert was a slave, Abu Jahl would tell the owner and would himself participate in physically trying to kill or torture these slaves. In a narration by Ibn Masud in Bukhari, he says, as for the early converts who were slaves, the Quraysh would round them up and torture them. The Quraysh would sometimes put iron on their bodies, then take them out to the sands and leave them there. Every one of them eventually gave up and said what the Quraysh wanted them to say, except for Bilal ibn Rabah. Now let us see the torture meted upon the slave class, especially Bilal ibn Rabah. Bilal did not consider his soul worth anything in front of Allah, and he refused to budge one bit. So the Quraysh concentrated their efforts on torturing him. Ibn Masud narrates, I myself saw Bilal being handed over to the ruffians of Makkah, and they would put a rope around his neck and drag him around the streets of Makkah. The owner of Bilal was Umayyah ibn Khalaf, and he himself participated in the torture sessions. Umayyah would personally take Bilal to the desert in the morning along with his other slaves. He would then get them to put a large rock upon the chest of Bilal and leave him in the desert under the hot sun without food or water. In one narration it is said that the rocks which were laid upon Bilal were so hot that you could cook raw meat on them and eat it. But all along Bilal would call out loud, Ahadun Ahad, meaning one God, one God. And he would further say, I reject Allah and Al-Uzza and I believe in Allah alone. Bilal never gave a single word to Quraysh that they wanted to hear. Allah helped Bilal radiallahu anhu through Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, who freed him of slavery. Allah had reserved a great honor for Bilal radiallahu anhu in the later stages of his life. Bilal radiallahu anhu was made the muaddin of the Prophet's mosque in Medina. So the same voice which called Ahadun Ahad during the time of torture became the voice that would call for Adhan 5 times a day during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Also it was Bilal who at the time of the conquest of Makkah would climb upon the Kaaba and make the first Adhan in Makkah. Think about that moment. The man whom the Quraysh had tortured because of his belief in Allah was now standing above the very Kaaba from which those people had tried to drive out the message of Islam. The man whom they had treated as worthless was now honored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bilal radiallahu anhu's story reminds us that the real measure of a person is not his wealth, his family, his social position, or the way people treat him. It is his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.